But we love your tributes to Steve Wright, or just your memories of dear Steve, who's died. 0207 862 2222, Radio 2 legend, Radio 1 legend, radio legend, lovely, lovely man. Steve in London, how do you remember him?
Oh, hello. Good morning, Jeremy. Hi. I met Steve a couple of times, me and my late girlfriend. She used to be a semi-professional singer, her and her friend, in the clubs and pubs for years, called Coffee and Cream. And then, obviously, a few years after that, her friend died of smoking-related diseases, so the act was virtually over. And then I met her again, and a few years after that, she said, I'd like to revive my career. So we went to Western House, as it was called then, as you know that.
Yeah.
It was before it was Wogan House. And we saw Steve Wright, and he gave us some really good information. And then we went back to see him again. And he said, that's it. You've sent all the promotions and everything to certain agents. And he said, try a TV talent show, which he did, the Excel Centre for the auditions for Britain's Got Talent.
Yeah.
Saw the producers, but unfortunately, in the end, she didn't get through. She also, her claim to fame was she promoted Honky Tonk Woman in 1969. She's on the cover album with her friend promoting that record, Honky Tonk Woman.
So was he? It sounded like he really had a bit of time for you and for her.
Yes, he was a very good, to speak to, and he was very calm and, listened to everything you said. And I used to take photographs of famous people. I wanted to be the next David Bailey, the BBC a lot, and see who was there. Celebrities like yourself and whoever. He just spoke to you and he had time for everybody almost. And I thank him for, trying to help Rena, her name was. But unfortunately in November, I lost her of heart problems. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
To me, it's two good people that I've lost, I think, because with her, no one else.
I'll see you. I'll doubtless see you around Western House or Wogan House at some point. Thank you, Steve, very much indeed for calling. Judy in the West Midlands. Hi, did you used to listen to the great Steve Wright?
I did indeed, yes. And Sundays will never be the same again, Jeremy, because in our house it's always 9 o'clock Sunday morning. Come on, Steve Wright's on. Such a lovely, beautiful programme with beautiful music. I'm 80, and the music he played was just my cup of tea.
Oh, how brilliant. Because he loved a certain kind of... Probably his key decade was the 70s for music, wasn't it?
Absolutely. The most, Nat King Cole or, excuse me, those sort of people, older type of music, beautiful music, music which will go on forever. And he was always so caring and so lovely with his dedications. And he will be sadly missed. Sundays will never be the same again. Except, Jeremy, if you could do this.
I think that's impossible. Thank you, Judy. That's so kind. What a lovely, lovely tribute. Thank you. Paul in Nottinghamshire. We're seeing pictures of Steve from back in the day. This would be the 1980s, 82, 83 on Radio 1. What do you remember about this great man?
He was an absolute legend for a start. One thing that sticks out in my mind, Jeremy, is I was travelling back from Wales one day, 2010. I've been a DJ for 30 years. I'm not one of these guys that runs radio stations. We don't normally do that as a DJ. But this particular day, Steve Wright played You To Me Are Everything by The Real Thing. He then said, I actually interviewed them, he said, what a great band they was. Fantastic band. And that weekend, on the Saturday, I was actually doing 40 years of The Real Thing at the Leisure Centre in Newark, and I had the pleasure of DJing it that night. And I just sent a message to Steve. I said, Steve, nice to know that. I said, because I'm actually gigging with them on Saturday night in Newark. And he actually said it on there, and he actually said my nickname, which is Tumper, and then my phone went mad, absolutely mad.
Yeah, because everyone listened to that show. That's right.
Everybody listened to that show, every truck driver, everybody. Brilliant. But you'll remember this, Jeremy. You will remember this because there was one news item. You should never speak about a news item, right? But at the end of a news item, the very last thing was a guy tried to smuggle a pigeon on a plane. And Steve Wright said, as soon as he came on one line, I'll have the chicken if I may. And that's what he said. And I was absolutely in stitches. I had to pull over because I was absolutely in stitches. But what a great guy, legend.
Thank you, Paul. Tumper, thank you so much. Because he used to have these characters, right? And on Radio 2, he didn't have so many on Radio 2, but he had one called The Old Woman. And the old woman, he'd say, "What do you think about that old woman?" And this woman would say, "Well, I think it's terrible." And I didn't realise it. Well, I thought it might be somebody playing an old woman, but the old woman was actually an old woman who sadly has, I think her name was Helen Joyce, sadly has herself passed away some years ago. But there was then this worry about, should we be having this as a bit of a stereotype? And then the old woman clearly was really worried that they were going to get rid of her because of having, and of course it was wonderful. She loved it. Imagine saying, so she carried right on until the end, and she was a brilliant part of it, yeah. Mike in Cumbria, what do you remember about the great Steve?
Hello.
Hello, Mike.
Hi. Fond memories. He was part of my life. I served my time as an engineer, and we used to listen to Steve every day.
Oh, brilliant.
He became part of us. He's going to be sadly missed.
Thank you, Mike. Lovely tribute. There he is on Top of the Pops back in the day. So, yeah, no, I would say that's probably 83, 84. Esther in Northern Ireland. Oh, there's nothing but good to say about this man, is there?
Oh, honestly, Jeremy, good morning. No, my memories are very, very happy ones. Back in the day, very many years ago, I was a district nurse. Right along the shores of Lough Neagh. It was a very lonely job. It was very difficult at times due to weather and things that had gone wrong with patients. But my day, Jeremy, every single day, my day consisted of Terry Wogan in the morning, then Ken Bruce, then you, and then Steve Wright in the afternoon. And, you know, those four people, they didn't know, but they were my life and got me through so many difficult times and nice times too. And you just there a minute ago, you mentioned the old woman. That was absolutely hilarious.
I know. I'm hoping I got her name right. I think it was Helen Joyce. My producers will tell me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to get that wrong. But yeah, wasn't that funny? And the idea that someone would say, "Oh, should we have an old..." Of course she wanted to be Steve Wright's old woman. Of course she did.
Oh, she was hilarious. And the things I don't know who trained her, but the things that she came out with, you know, she would make you belly laugh, and he just called her old woman, you know.
What about Ask Elvis? Wasn't that great?
Oh, it was good too, Ask Elvis. And I never really quite knew if these were all people sitting imitating things or if there were real people on there. Terry Wogan used to use names and people writing in as well. Yeah. I mean, you probably were between you and Ken Bruce, you were the sensible ones.
Yes, probably true. Well, listen, I can tell you, I mean, from my point of view, it was the biggest privilege we have to speak to you on the radio. And I know Steve Wright felt that tenfold because he'd had 40 years. Thanks, Esther. 40 years, 3 hours a day. Now, you're a radio man, right? Yes. So you understand what that means. That's a serious, serious achievement.
It's a huge achievement, not only on the same radio station, but I suppose for many music jocks, particularly on commercial radio, you do a that was and this is. And it's a completely different skill. Whereas his is kind of long form and it's interactive, but then it's music-based as well. So it's actually quite a rare format that he had. And as Paddy was saying, those interviews that he did were so incisive and it didn't matter whether they were sort of well-known names or actors or musicians or whoever it was, every single one, the precision question asking. Yeah. And, you know, he's just a genius.
I think we've got his music, which is I guess the orchestral sound he always
I love it.
Played in and out. Let's have a listen. So every day you'd hear Steve introducing his show over this almost quite old-fashioned theme tune, but very upbeat, very bouncy. And then at the end, it would play out the show, and you felt you'd almost, as a listener, you'd been to the gym. You know, it required a lot of attention. His show, there was a lot going on in it. I think part of the reason it was so good is A, he was a perfectionist, and B, he would record an interview for 25 minutes and then cut it to 12, and it was twice as good.
Yeah.
Anne is in Hertfordshire. Let's just take one more call. Anne in Hertfordshire, what would you like to say?
Yes, good morning. I just think it's really, really sad. He was Mr. Radio, and I hope the BBC put a statue of him outside the TV station, because he was Mr. Radio, and we're all going to miss him terribly.
He was. We're actually moving out of Wogan House this week, which is a very poignant coincidence. So we're changing studios. So the old studio that Steve had has been removed as well. So the whole thing feels like we're in a.
And my heart goes out to his family.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that, Anne. That's very important to say that his closest family will be in their own grief today. Thank you. Thanks for all your calls. Very sad day, but it's lovely to hear your comments, and it's just a reminder, Narinder, isn't it?
I think a huge loss.
What a place he had, yeah. On with the show. After the break, we're asking if